Frank, I'd like to just jump right in because this story is about Veterans Day and honoring our veterans.
Yes.
What does Veterans Day mean to you?
It means honoring all the guys that have gone before you and what they had to go through to keep our country as safe as it could possibly be. And of course, a lot of them, like we found out in World War II, they had to sacrifice a lot of bodies. And henceforth, you got all these cemeteries all over Europe with thousands of white crosses on them. So you always think about what Veterans Day means to everybody. It means freedom for everybody. So it's an honor to be a veteran.
Well, thank you so much for your service. I'd like to hear more about it. Did you enlist? Were you drafted? How did that work?
I was in high school and just out of high school, and I got drafted because that's what they do, they draft. And I'm born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Of course, I'm a Steeler fan, and I'm older than the Steeler franchise by 1 year. The franchise has gotten 33. Anyway, what transpires there was I got drafted and got stuck in the Army, and it was an interesting life to have, to find out what it was to be, go boot camp and all that, and that was you became a man whether you wanted to or not. And that's what the beginning was of, shall we say, becoming a man, and it was really an interesting thing to be.
And were you 18 when you were drafted, or how old were you?
I was 18.
Wow, so young. It's so scary.
And when they drafted in Pennsylvania, they were drafting everybody for the Korean War. They took 35,000 students. Anybody that was 18.
What was that like leaving your family?
Well, it was something that was unexpected, but everybody said, well, you got to do what you got to do, whether you like it or not. So but at that time, we were at war with North Korea, and we were going to help free Korea. And that's another whole story in itself, too, because after we did free Korea, the Korean government, it's over 75 years now, they are the only country in the world that thanks the United States government every year for setting them free. So it's just a wonderful experience to know what another country loves. It still loves you a lot right now.
What you did means something. It has lasting effects, and being thanked for that and your dedication and your sacrifice.
Yes, and you learned a lot about a lot of things the hard way. But everybody ought to be in the service at least, because they do that in Israel as well.
Yeah, tell me one example of something that you learned while you were in service.
Well, the big thing you learn is hurry up, get in line, and then you wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. And you do that to get shots in the arm, or even to get food. You know, you got to get in line. Well, you have to rush and get in line. So you learn to do that, and they even do that today. You go in the market, you get in line at the cashier. So,
what is the military service like today versus what you saw it to be back in your day?
Well, it's changed a lot. The training is still the same, but there's not a war that is in action now. So they're training to be prepared if one comes about. So the situation here is not actually the same. So you're learning to be a soldier, and that continues and continues and continues. So it's good that it does, because you don't really have to go unless there is a war. So we don't look to have a war.
So we're airing this on Veterans Day to honor our veterans, and it always makes me think, you know, what are our young people today missing? What do people not know that they should know as a respect for our veterans?
Well, you see, there was a war that was fought, and that was the Vietnam War. And when they came home, they were told to take their uniforms off and not walk in public with one on, because people didn't like that war at all, and they spit on the guys and everything else. So there's a whole different attitude with the public versus the guys that went out there and fought for this country. So it was a different time and a different attitude. And now you're going through another type that's kind of similar, but it's simmering. And like Trump said, when he was in, there were no wars. But look at it now. You look, there may even have a third war. You don't know. So there is a difference, yes.
Are you concerned for the next generation?
Yes, because they don't know what's going on, and they're not taught anything about what it was in the past. It's even in the service, they got that woke business, and it's not good, because it's harder now for all the branches of service to get recruits. Not like it used to be. It's really tough to get recruits. So you have to honor the guys that are volunteering now. But they need to be taught more. And history is the thing that teaches you a lot. And that's the important thing.
Where were you based for most of your time?
Well, I did all my training in the Carolinas and Virginia. We were down in Southern Pines in North Carolina. We were in Southern Pines, or we went on maneuvers against the 82nd Airborne, and we were the enemy. And they, unfortunately, did an airdrop from parachutes into the forest, and it was supposed to be in a big opening, a couple of mile opening. Well, the wind changed, and they all wound up in the trees, and the trees are 100 feet tall. So we had to go up and get them. So when we went up and got them, they lost their fight. We were the enemy, so we won. But, those are the things you learn as well.
Was there anyone that you particularly got close to that, kind of out of survival, and that was your family, your brothers?
Well, not too much, because we were in training so much and didn't get to participate in a war. We were getting ready for the war. And then what happened was we were asked to board ship to go to Korea. So we were on our way to Korea and got halfway there, and they said, well, they have a truce, so we don't need any more guys over here, so turn around and come back. So on our way back to the United States, we were now going to be deployed to go to Germany. Well, when that happened, it was 2 years were up for me, so I decided, well, the best thing for me to do is go home. So that's what I did.
And what was that like, when that transition? Because that's where a lot of people, I think, have a difficult time, right?
Yeah, because they're getting all pumped up to go fight, and then you didn't have to fight, and they said, oh, yeah, oh, God, yeah, well, look at it now. Our troops are still there, and we still have guys over there, and it's important that they are, because and North Korea is dropping these balloons with garbage in it and everything, and they're tearing up the place. So, like they say, there may be another war breakout between Germany and between Russia, China, and North Korea. So here you go. Now everybody that's over there, you might blow the whistle, and then there we go with a whole bunch of guys going over to Korea.
Is this what motivates you to keep being involved in service? I mean, you're 92 years old, and you're still heavily involved and active. What motivates you? Well,
it has to be done, and you have to be prepared, and just like the Boy Scouts, like they say. So that's what we do, and that's what you learn to do, and that's what you're taught to do. So it's an honor to do so. So you're also looking for your brothers. Hey, if one guy's not feeling good, you have to tell him, well, let's go. We have to do it anyway, whether you feel it or not. So that's part of growing up and being what you're supposed to be.
So you mentioned, it was a grueling time taking you back to boot camp. What was that experience like for you?
Well, you never knew what was going to happen and how it was going to be. And like there was one time where they teach you how to throw grenades. I mean, you actually pull the pin. Well, then you're supposed to throw it. And if anybody froze, they had a tube that you would throw the grenade in, and it would go and go down in the ground, and it would explode it, rather than you hold it in your hand. And some guys froze. Well, you had to grab it out of their hand and throw it. So those are the things you don't expect, and neither does your instructor, but they have to be ready in case it does happen. So those kind of things will shake everybody up.
But yeah, and before you knew, I mean, when you thought you were going over there to fight, what was going through your mind?
Am I ready? Can I do the best I can? And can you be able to see? We also had to learn to, being I was in the armored cavalry.
Wow.
And it's one of the oldest cavalry units in the Army. It was one that was horseback in the West.
Wow.
3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment Recon, and our logo, if it's up there, is a bugle standing on its bellows. So,
wow.
so you had to learn how to use all the weapons, the ground weapons, and then learn to shoot the tank and use mortars and everything. Hell, or shoot everything, because you never know where they're going to put you, and you had to be ready to take care of yourself no matter what they put in your hand. Yeah.
When you came back, did you settle in and fall in love, and what was your life like after that?
Well, while I was in the service, I got married, and by the time I was about ready to leave, I already had a child or two. So when I come out, the first thing I had to do was what? Go get a job real quick. And first job I had was working for the post office, the local post office, which was a trip and a half, and education of something you never did before. But it was interesting, and they still do things the same way that they did way back then. Still do it the same way today.
How did you fall in love and go through that experience while you were in the military?
Well, it's when I got married, I even had my wife come to where I was stationed in Virginia for quite a while, Camp Pickett in Virginia. So, of course, she didn't get to be on post. She had to go into the capital, which is Richmond, which is about 40 miles away. So, when I got the weekends off or whatever, then I went to Richmond. But that's another whole different lifestyle too. Yeah. In the South, they don't have lunch at a different time, dinner at a different time, so it's a whole different ball game. So you learn a whole different thing about living somewhere else.
Yeah. You mentioned you had kids in service. What do you teach them about your experience?
Well, the thing is, you don't get a chance to do too much teaching because you're out getting a job. And unfortunately, situations didn't work out too well in the marriage, and so I had to get a divorce and so forth. But those are the other things you had to learn. Another whole way of life. And by being in the service, you learned a lot of things, how to handle them. So then I started all over again. So I got married again, second time. And what could I say? Met her in college. We're both going to get degrees in physical distribution and transportation management. And she worked for Burlington Northern Air Freight as a senior claims analyst. Wow. And then during the evening, she went to another school in Southern California and got a paralegal degree while I was going to another school at night and getting a warehouse and transportation degrees. And we got married, and say another whole ball game. And she was 20 years younger than me. I came from Pennsylvania. I came out here by car and tried to get away from the cold and the snow and everything. And then I was living in Anaheim and got a job as a traffic manager and so forth, and learned a whole nother life in the community and all. And so then from there I came to came to up in Oak Run and lived up there for 14 years. And when I just got up there with the wife and all, why they had the fountain fire, and that was an experience in itself. So with that being in a suburban fire department, I decided to run for president of the fire department auxiliary, and henceforth I got to do some fundraisers. I got car shows up there in Oak Run at the fire department, and I also instigated the first for the county can't think of the name now, but it was a big event and draw a lot of people, and it was a lot of fun. So then I did that for 14 years, and then I was going back and forth from Oak Run to Reading, and my wife was working in Reading as well, so we decided it's a lot of transportation you're doing, so we decided to find a place here in Reading to be in Reading, which was another experience. So it was a lot of fun all the way around. Yeah, and while I was up in Reading, I got had a flag, big flag, 30, 40 foot long, put in the ground, and put a flag up, the only flag in Oak Run, and dedicated to an old veteran who took care of the maintenance for the fire department, and put it in his name. And then somebody also gave me a mobile home right there, and I turned that mobile home into public library. So that library is still there.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun raising funds for the fire department.
Tell me about what your car, the items that you put on it and the flags you put on it, what that represents to you.
Well, it's fun, and it also, again, it's all military, because I got all the magnets from the different organizations I belong to, all of them, as the Stand Down and CVAC, and my Korean chapter, and a couple other organizations, and so they're all on there. And then on my dashboard, I have all the miniature football players for the Steelers and all. So and then I got flags on there, Steeler flags, and I got them on my front and back on the fenders and all. So try to make it fun as well.
Yeah, what do you hope people see and get from when they see you driving by?
I definitely have their attention, and they all clap and laugh, and they make fun, and that's what it's all about. But also, it's like a running billboard for all the military organizations as well as my Steeler fans, and yeah, they always say, if you see my car, must be something important going on.
You're always where the important places. I have two more questions for you. One is, I can tell that you're fueled by a life of service.
Yeah.
What is it that feeds that hunger to serve?
It becomes part of you when you're in boot training, and it becomes part of you. Just like they say with the Marines. The Marines are known to not fear anything, and they live by not fearing anything. They even believe that you can't get shot, you won't die. But that's what's instilled in you, and you become, and you listen, and you learn, and you say, yes, I am that man. But are you?
Are you afraid of anything?
I'm always afraid of being late. That's why I always go everywhere early. Even when we have a meeting, I go to a place to make sure that the parking place is going to be there, and so I don't have to go run around outside, keep running around to find a parking place. Because you never know when you go, the road may be shut down, or a detour, or an accident maybe. So I always go early to make sure, and then I'm there. I wait. It's okay. I have coffee. Listen to the radio, and then I'm there.
Always on time. So we're going to share this story on Veterans Day. And, you know, if you think about talking to that future generation service member, what would you tell them?
To honor those who passed and why they died and what they died for. And that they have to learn, but they got to go back in history to learn it. Why the war was and what happened while the war was on to make it so important. And knowing that thousands of guys gave up their life to make it important. So there should be a reason why it's important to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for teaching us this. Thank you so much for being here. Very, very well said. And thank you so much for your service.